Good morning. Bruce, thank you for a good song service. And Keith, thank you for reminding us how special adoption is and love, how much love is shown through that act and choice. We are blessed in our earthly life through physical families that adopt and that love that's shown there. And in our spiritual lives, where would we be without Christ in adopting us? Have you ever noticed how in life that we often chronicle our life by special days in our lives? Birthdays, deaths, retirements, graduations. We often look back over our life and think of special events that happened and kind of use that as a gauge as we chronicle our life. I know it was not a thing of choice. Well, it was a matter of choice on a given day, but I hadn't planned ahead, but I happened to be baptized on Easter Sunday. It was just the point in time that I made that decision. Turns out as I've gone through life that I've appreciated that, because each Easter Sunday it brings back to my mind that decision I made. This time of year, though, we celebrate one particular day quite often. What is it? Last weekend, this last Friday night, some of you seniors, what was it? Graduation. This painting that's before you is that's me in the white suit getting ready to go off to college. No, that is a painting by Norman Rockwell, Saturday Evening Post, front cover in 1954. And the title of this painting is Breaking Home Ties. Breaking Home Ties. I want you to look at it for just a minute and notice the different emotions in this painting. Let's look at the dad first of all. He's in the denim shirt, has both hats in his hand. It almost seems like he's not wanting to let go of his boy to go off to school. He's gazing off to the left with really a sad look on his face. Oh, you can't see it very well, but off to his right, there's the lantern and the red flag to wave down the train. Probably the last thing he has to do before his son leaves. And in contrast, you have the boy sitting beside him, matching tie, socks, nice white suit. Wow, he's ready to go. We might say back in those days, he's biting at the bits. He's just ready. He's looking off, gazing off into the future. I can't wait to get there type look. And we can't forget the dog. The dog is there to the side, just head on the boy's thigh, and seems like the dog has the same thoughts as the daddy, that this is not a day they were looking forward to, but on the other hand, the son is ready to go. I think the painting does describe in some ways the way we feel at moments of separation. On one side you have maybe a touch of sadness, apprehension. On the other side you have a person that's just really eager and ready to go. Can you parents relate to the daddy? Can you seniors this year relate to the young man? Probably. Can you think back to moments when you were separated from someone you love for some reason? I remember Wyatt Jones relating a story to the Golden Years one time when he was drafted into the Army and he was leaving, and he said he boarded the bus with other recruits, and Iris was standing there toward the back of the bus, and he said, I got on the bus and I walked all the way to the back and looked out the rear window and just waved to her. Sounded like he didn't want to go very, very, very much. I remember heading off to Abilene my freshman year. The house was empty that morning as I pulled out, had my car packed, went back into the house and just sat in the den on the couch and reminisced about what a great family I had, what good parents, what a great sister I had, and an okay brother that I had. But I remember sitting on that couch counting my blessings, and before I knew it, tears were running down my cheek. Those moments cause emotion. Whether we're excited about them or not, they bring out emotion in us. I remember driving to Abilene in my car. That was back in the days before you didn't have to pull a U-Haul behind you. Everything I had was in my back seat. Little radio, clothes, everything. Care package from my mom. But I remember my thoughts as I traveled to Abilene from the Dallas area and thinking, you know, if I make it or break it, it's going to be up to me now. My parents are not there to encourage me, to push me, to make decisions for me. I'll be making those on my own. And it was a neat thought, but it was also a little bit of a challenging thought. And I decided that, as simple as it may sound, I decided that every night before I went to bed, I was going to read 2 chapters from the Bible to keep me focused spiritually. It's pretty simple, wasn't it? There's a lot more to it, but that was just one of the steps I decided I was going to take. Well, as I got to reading each night, I would write a verse that was particularly important to me at the time. I'd write it on a piece of paper and I'd stick it up on my mirror in my room. I didn't plan it this way, but those verses, that scripture became a topic of discussion. The guys that would come in my room, they'd come in, well, James, what does Matthew 5:2 say? Would y'all be surprised with the one that gained the most attention that freshman year? It was Matthew 5:27 and 28. It's a verse from the Sermon on the Mount that says, you've heard that it was a sin to commit adultery. But I say to you that whosoever looketh on a woman in lust hath committed adultery in his own heart. Really, it was not that guys came in and said, well, I like that verse, but they came in and said, well, what? Why do you have that verse up there? You know, it was almost a joke. But you know, in reality, it was something that all of us 18, 19-year-old guys needed. And it was seen in their response. But those times cause us to plan and to look back and to be excited about the future. It's time when we usually hear people say things like, good luck, or God bless you. See you. Call me. Take care. It's usually a time when we include a prayer to God for the well-being of each party during that time of separation. Regardless of the reason for parting, the great concern at those times seems to be the future. And I think as we have been involved perhaps with family members during these times of graduation, the concern is, what will tomorrow bring? Or what will you do with tomorrow? There are many stories in the Bible that talk about separations. This morning I want to look at just one of them. Jesus is involved in this story of separation. The big difference in his and this story and ours is that we do not know what tomorrow holds. And this story, Jesus knew exactly what tomorrow would hold. It's his discussion with his disciples before he would be crucified. In John 14, 15, and 16, Jesus talking with his disciples, or to the disciples, starts out in chapter 14 by saying, "Do not let your hearts be troubled. Believe in me, believe in my Father." He talks about the promise of the heaven that awaits, that he's going to prepare for us and for them. And in chapter 16, he closes with this statement, "These things I've spoken to you so that in me you may have peace." Jesus is going to be sharing some thoughts with the disciples that he knows these things are important for them as they are apart. This morning I've entitled these Anchors During Absence. The first one, and all of these are taken not from those 3 chapters, but from chapter 15, John chapter 15. The first anchor I'd like to mention this morning that Jesus states to the disciples is this. He says, "Abide in me, and I in you. As a branch cannot bear fruit of itself unless it abides in the vine, so neither can you unless you abide in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. He who abides in me and I in him, he bears much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing." So the first anchor that Jesus gives the disciples is this: abide in me. 7 times in these first few verses he says abide. He uses the word abide. Abide in me. It's a beautiful picture. Jesus the vine, we the branches, God the vine dresser, pruning, helping us to grow, to bear fruit. I think in times of transition, sometimes we lose sight of the role that we have in the relationship we have with Jesus Christ, to abide in him. Think about it. Sometimes when we enter a new walk, we think everything is on our shoulders. We go off to a new school and we want to make that school work for us. We go to a new job and we want that job to be successful. We seek out new friends that we've never known before, and in all those cases, we think that success or failure is based on me. Could we not go back and reconsider the relationship we have with Jesus? Jesus said, "Abide in me. Abide in me." No greater blessing could we bestow on someone who's departing from us, going their separate way, maybe a new way, than to encourage them, to pray for them that they would abide in Jesus. Whether we're talking about bearing fruit or simply life itself, to be apart from Christ is death. So the first anchor is to remind us to abide in Jesus. The second one is to abide in love. Verses 12 through 17 of chapter 15, Jesus says this to the disciples: "This is my commandment, that you love one another, just as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, that one lay down his life for his friends. You are my friends if you do what I command you. No longer do I call you slaves, for the slave does not know what his master is doing. But I have called you friends, for all things that I have heard from my Father I have made known to you. You did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you that you would go and bear fruit, and that your fruit would remain, so that whatever you ask in my Father in my name, he may give to you. This I command you, that you love one another." Second anchor in absence: abide in love. You know, we sometimes sing the song, "People Need the Lord," and it raises the question, people need the Lord, and when will we realize that people need the Lord? In this passage, when Jesus talks about us loving one another, I think we could say that he is saying to us, people need each other. If he's commanding us to love one another, he knows it's essential. I noticed a while ago in Clay's prayer that he prayed to God that he would help Westsiders in the raising of our children, that not just the parent, but each one of us would be concerned about other children in the congregation. You know, we need each other. We need the encouragement that comes through good friends. And I would take that a step further for those maybe the younger ones who have graduated and are branching out on their own, that you don't need just good friends, but you need some Christian friends. You need someone that shares your faith, who shares goals, who shares hopes, someone that you can confide in, that will love you for the fact that you're God's child and help you in that direction. I'm thankful for every good person that God's placed in my life, but I'm especially thankful for the Christian fellowship that I've enjoyed. Think back to your life in the church, the body. Think how many times people have rejoiced with you. The times people have cried with you. You know, it's really hard for me, because I love the church so much, it's hard for me to comprehend how families in our society move from one place to another, jobs in different cities, and do not have any church family. Because as I look back through the time, that's been one of the greatest blessings of being in those situations. And you know, as I look back in time, there are brothers and sisters in Christ, and I know you feel the same way, that are closer than blood family in some cases. They're huge blessings to us. Think of the number of times that, and the number of Christian brothers and sisters you have that have been raising their children alongside you as you raised yours. Remember that, Tammy? Dan? It's hard to imagine us as a young married couples here at Westside, isn't it? But we were once with our little children. What a blessing to have brothers and sisters to raise your children with. What a blessing to receive some financial support for a mission trip that you want to take. What a blessing to receive a gift from a brother or sister as you get married, or hugging those new little babies, or sitting alongside each other and praying and singing, taking the Lord's Supper together. My family, like yours, has moved to different locations, to different neighborhoods. We've left many good friends, but you know, we've always found the welcoming arms of local congregation, brothers and sisters. When Jesus said, abide in love for each other, we are the recipients of huge blessings through that. I love the personal feelings that are sometimes expressed in the New Testament between churches and missionaries as they look forward to seeing each other and look forward to an eternal home that they will share. You know, in Ecclesiastes 4:9-12, Solomon wrote, 2 are better than one. I'm glad that I don't have to go through life alone. Aren't you? He says, if two are together, if two lie down together, he says, you'll have warmth. He said, if you fall down on your own, who's there to pick you up? He said, but if two are together and one falls, the other will pick him up. And he says, a threefold cord is not quickly broken. In other words, there's strength in numbers. What a blessing we have by abiding in love for each other. And then the third anchor. Jesus encourages his disciples to abide in his calling, to abide in the truth and the mission that he has called them to. He says in verse 19, chapter 15, 19, I chose you out of the world. Because of this, the world hates you. You know, the fact that Jesus presented truth to those around him really brought a negative response from many. They hated him. And Jesus in this closing part of 15 is saying that's going to happen to you. But remain true to your calling. There are few things as important when you're setting out on your own as having a sense of direction or having a path to follow. With no sound decision-making basis, boy, just think what society offers you. If it's good enough for society, in a lot of cases, it's not good enough for you. We need some different path. When a person leaves you or leaves your presence, these times of separation, who do you want them to listen to? Who are you going to encourage them to listen to? Would it be society? Would it be a preacher? Would say, well, that'd be a good choice. But you know, Paul says that some preach without pure motives. So in some cases, maybe that's not a good answer. What about a fellow Christian? I mentioned a while ago we need Christian friends, but we need Christian friends. One of the great challenges to Christians is to have a person they know who wears the name Christian but doesn't act Christian. Maybe the wolf in sheep's clothing. So who do you want them to listen to? Who will you listen to? How about if you make your judgments in accordance with what is legal? It's legal to do this, so it's okay. Can y'all think of anything that you can legally do in America today that wouldn't be too okay? A lot of things. A lot of things. You know, we place our trust sometimes in people and decisions that are made, and we're not making a decision from a biblical perspective. I want to share just one story with you. It's back when I was doing my graduate work. I took a course, weekend seminar at ULR in Little Rock. I listened to a lady speak. Y'all, the older group here will know, Joycelyn Elders, who was Surgeon General under President Clinton. She was a guest speaker that day, and her topic was school-based clinics. We were talking about high school administration. School-based clinics. And the specific topic that she was addressing that day was the abnormally high teenage pregnancies that were going on in Arkansas. And she proposed in her talk that school-based clinics ought to give contraceptives to teenagers. And all the response in the room was, yes, that'd be a good way to deal with this problem. After her talk, it was opened up to questions. And I raised my hand and I said, what consideration has been given to teaching our kids to abstain? That the sexual relationship is God-given, but to be a part of a husband and wife relationship. Would y'all like to know the response that was given? It was a flat out, that won't work. And that was it. That won't work. I'm telling you, as we go through life and we're making decisions on our own, we have to have a basis for making good decisions. Stay the course. Abide in your calling. Paul wrote this to Timothy. Listen to this for just a minute. Preach the word, he says. He's talking to a young preacher. He says, preach the word, be ready in season and out of season. Reprove, rebuke, exhort with patience and instruction. For the time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine, but wanting to have their ears tickled, they will accumulate for themselves teachers in accordance to their own desires, and will turn away their ears from the truth and will turn aside to myths. I want to follow the truth. I want those that I love to follow the truth. But I think you would agree that it seems in our society that people are more interested in hearing someone that would tickle their ears, someone that would say what they want to hear. So as we come to these points in life where we're being separated from people we love, I'd put before you three things that Jesus addressed to his disciples. He said, abide in me. He said, abide in love for each other. And he said, abide in your calling. Is there any greater things we could ask? Everything else that we might hope for, the safety of our children, the well-being for our parents, whatever it might be, are all temporal in nature. But these are eternal. Abide in Jesus, abide in love for each other, and abide in your calling. One of the saddest stories in the Bible is the young boy who decides he's going to go out on his own. He knows what he wants in life. He takes the money from his father and heads out and forgets, leaves behind the things that are important. And we find him, feeding the hogs and starving to death, and decides that things are better at home. And that story that's so sad at that point ends up being one of the happiest stories in the Bible. As he returns home, his father's running down to greet him. We have great desires for those who are apart from us, but none are greater than those that are found in Jesus Christ. There's no more tragic loss than to be without Christ, to be away from the Father, and there's no greater thrill for those at home for one who will return. This morning as we sing this invitation hymn, if we can help you in your walk where you are today, we'd ask you to come. Would you do that as we stand and sing?